Hello, and welcome to Witchy Woman Podcast. I am your host, Danae Sweet, and this is Season 5, Episode 12. This episode, we are going to talk about fire. We're the element of fire, the correspondences, how you can use it, and we're going to make a candle at the end. I want to start off by saying thank you so much for being patient with me. Thank you for understanding that I just couldn't get episodes out because of all the fires here. I know that it's not something that's being reported on the major news because, the sky is fucking falling and there's a billion things that are going on in this country. But Nebraska had over 800,000 acres burned just last month. And most of those acres are close to us. The first fire happened mid-March, literally while we were on, we had just woke up and started our thrifting trip up in South Dakota. We wanted to get away for a long weekend because calving season here at the ranch, it was starting soon, and we just wanted a few days to ourselves because once a cows start having calves here, we're pretty much stuck here until they're all done. And that isn't until the main work of all of this doesn't end until May-ish, mid-May. Then we can slow down. So we were pretty excited about that trip. It was a very windy day when we left, and when we got to South Dakota, there were some fires in South Dakota happening, which were very terrifying. However, we kept our plans. Seemed like they were getting those fires under control while we were there. We went thrifting. We were checking in because by the next day, we had gotten news that there was a fire not too far from here, a few hours from here. So we're like, okay, it's a few hours away. Things should be fine. Dear listener, it was not in fact fine. We were very, very nervous, and we had stopped for lunch, a very late lunch, mid-afternoon, because we had gotten caught up thrifting. Reason for thrifting is we were trying to populate our house in the new addition with fun things that mean something to us, something that we're dude, that is so cool, I want that on my wall, instead of just generic shit. So not that generic shit isn't fine, but we were you know what, this is something that we have waited 2 years to get completed. We want to make this side of the house and the whole house special. We want to really have curated things that really, we have a story behind, the chairs. We have these two amazing yellow vintage, velvet-ish chairs that rock and swivel that we got from an estate sale. And I learned all about the lady that had them, and her story was fabulous. And the couch we have upstairs here in my witch area, that came from our house that we bought together in town that we no longer own. That was belonged to the lady that had lived and died there. We have, I want all of the things in our house to, if somebody to see them, but is that haunted? Maybe, possibly, I don't know. That's the kind of quirky, weird vibe we were going for. Anyway, I digress. We had stopped because we started to see that it was traveling rather fast, even though we were 2 hours from approximately where the ignition site to this fire was. We could see on maps and by reports on the fire from local firefighters and volunteers that it was traveling really, really fast. And the wind that day in some places was gusting up to 60 miles per hour or more, and a really strong straight wind. It never was not windy at this point. So I believe one of the news people had reported that in the first 10 minutes of the fire, it traveled 14 miles, which is crazy fast. Side note, we're in a drought here in Nebraska, so everything is crispy and crunchy as fuck. So we get a call after we stopped for our late lunch, which was at this amazing restaurant in Spearfish, South Dakota. Anyway, Brad's mom called and was like, basically, we should probably come home. Like, it's not looking good. So we made the fastest trip from Spearfish, South Dakota to here that I think we've ever made. Luckily, our dogs were at the babysitter, and we didn't have to pick them up until the next day. So we could leave them there when we got home that night and kind of get our bearings and figure out what we were going to do next. It is very pertinent to mention that I have some pretty decent PTSD from fires that I had encountered and been evacuated from in Southern California. One of the larger ones was coincidentally called the Witch Fire, and I lived in Ramona, California at the time. I'm not going to go into big details because it is traumatic for me to recount, but let's just say it was bad. We lived in Ramona and had our horses there on a horse property there, and between myself and the person that I was dating at the time, we had like 14 horses to move and evacuate to Del Mar Racetrack from Ramona. And some of that trip, or both trips, I did by myself, and they were traumatic. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, so weirdly enough, about 2 weeks before this fire had started, I had started working with my therapist on desensitizing myself to the smells of fires in general, just kind of working through the trauma, doing a lot of journaling, exposure therapy through just like burning, instead of like my normal witchy incense, I was literally burning like grass and eucalyptus leaves, things like that I smelled during that fire. Anyway, fast forward 2 weeks and this happens. So it was very coincidental. Anyway, so we got home and I immediately made a go bag with all my important things. And honestly, when you're in that situation, the important things, there's a very small list. For me, it's my computer, my external hard drives, my photo albums, and if there's a book or two that I happen to see, I'm going to put that in the truck or car or whatever I'm loading up. I went and got cat carriers for all my cats in case I needed to evacuate everything. I made a bag for my animals. So I had cat food, dog food. One of my animals needs medication, so I gathered their medication, some bowls, their favorite treats and toys, because they're going to need something to comfort them if they're not here at the house. Anyway, so I gathered all that. I made a go bag with some basic clothes for both me and my husband, and I put all of that in one of our vehicles, made sure that I had enough fuel to get the hell out of here. And I started all my sprinklers on the outsides of this house. And then at this point, my brother-in-law and his friend were already fighting fire. So they were gone. So I went down to his house and started all of his sprinklers as well. So with nobody being here at the ranch, it was just me and my husband. So we were in charge of, making sure that we were here, we were watching, because the cows were still having babies. They won't stop for a fire. So we were just home here kind of managing the what ifs. If it got close, where do we move the cows to? Where do I put my horses? My brother-in-law's dogs. Those are the things that we were managing at that point. That fire got, I don't know, as the crow flies, maybe 6 to 10 miles away was the closest. And it literally, they got it stopped at the border, at one of the borders of our property, at one of the pastures. They stopped it before it got to our fence line, which I am so fucking thankful for. Ridiculously thankful. It took a few weeks for them to get both fires declared 100% contained. We had I don't know how many days it was in between, but it felt like we had about a week of decompression time, which was basically catch-up time because we went and got our dogs from the babysitter, caught up on all of our chores. Brother-in-law was sleeping because he was up fighting fires. We were up as well, but we weren't fighting fires. We were spotting and spotting the fire, make sure it's not close to us, see if it changed, all that good stuff. Anyway, we slept. We had like a week where we slept a lot. We caught up on chores. And in the meantime, it's very upsetting to me, and I'm having some serious PTSD issues. And then the latest ones happened. A fire started because of dry lightning. We were excited because we saw that we had some rain in our forecast, which we 100% need because, as I said before, we were in a drought, a really bad one. And instead of rain, we ended up with some lightning that started, I think, 3 separate fires. 2 of them were closest to us, and burned through part of a town next to us called Ashby. It did burn structures, some people's homes. They lost their homes. It was very sad. People that had gone through the first fire and had part of their ranches burned down, like the other part burned down in this one. That particular fire ended up stopping. That's the one that stopped right at our border. I'm sorry. I think I told you that was the other one. This one stopped at our border. The other one was south of us, and that one stopped 2 miles short of our house. My husband and I were out all night with that one, spotting and making sure it didn't get close to our house. He ended up leaving in a tractor to go dig a fire line in one of our meadows just in case, to remove the vegetation to get a fire break going. His grandparents were evacuated from their home in the middle of the night because they lived in the town that the fire went through. It's been a very stressful 30 days, let's put it that way. And I just wanted to give you guys the short version of all of this, keeping in mind I haven't had a PTSD flashback in fucking years, and had one, and it was awful. It was being literally it was almost like having a hallucination that I was back in the vehicle that I was driving with the horses in the trailer with the flames all around me. It felt very, very real. And that happened these second fires that were super close to us. Brad and I were out in our side-by-side because we had spotted fire, and we were trying to figure out how close it was so we could report back to the firemen where one of the borders was of the fire, trying to figure out how close it was to our place, to my in-laws, to a neighbor's place. And when we were driving around in the hills going towards it, we did see the flames and realized how close it was. That triggered me. And then I had a sweet ass flashback, which was awful. All of this to say, that's why there hasn't been an episode for the last month, is because we have been dealing with quite a bit. We're exhausted, and it's funny, all of us are why are we so tired now? Well, it's because we're no longer in fight or flight. Our bodies are we don't have to be worried anymore. We should probably sleep. So we've all been very, very tired. We're still doing the things, but with a lot of help from caffeine. I also want to say thank you so much to everybody that lit a candle, that sent some good vibes, that checked in on us, that offered help, all of that. Thankful for all of the volunteer firefighters and all the ranchers that went out in their own little fire rigs, because that's the bulk of the firefighting here. It's done by volunteer fire departments and ranchers. A lot of ranchers tend to have a big water tank and sprayer that they can put in the back of the truck and go fight fire. And without them, hundreds of thousands, more acres would have burned. I have no doubt. So I'm very, very thankful for everybody that sacrificed their time and their safety to put these fires out. It was incredible work that they did. We we went out and drove down one of the main roads where all the burned areas are at, and it looks like a desert. If you didn't know, the area that I live in, Nebraska, they're called the Sand Hills, and that is what they are. It is sand. It's not hard ground. It's very, very sandy with a lot of beautiful rolling hills, some really large hills, and everything's covered in a thick layer of beautiful grass here. It is incredibly beautiful country, but like I said, it's sand underneath. The vegetation and the animals and everything, the wildlife that's supposed to be here, really is a very delicate balance for these pastures. Ranchers are very careful as to not overgraze them with their cattle so that these hills still have beautiful grass and come back every year. With the fires, it looks like a desert. I've posted some of those pictures on social media, and I guess I could post some more if you guys want. But it looks like a desert. It will be at least a year before it will be probably safe to put any animals in it, because yes, the grass is going to grow back, the life will prevail, and the vegetation will come back. However, it's going to be a very delicate, thin layer of vegetation where if a ton of animals tromp it down, it's going to be a desert again. So it's going to be a very delicate situation as far as range management goes for quite a few years. When I first moved back from San Diego, half of my dad's ranch burned down, and it was at least 3 years before we saw the areas that were burned come back to like 100% to the way it was before. And all of that, as it is this year, back then, it was all made worse by a drought. And that's what we're experiencing at this point, is a drought. So any vibes, prayers, whatever you want to call it, for moisture over here would be great. This is the first and last time you're ever going to hear me say, I hope it fucking snows, because that would be really, really great for our hills. Okay, and so since I cannot stop thinking about fire, that's all that's in my mind right now. I think I've done an episode about the elements before, but let's just focus this episode solely on the element of fire. Let's talk about how you can use it, what are the herbs, colors, planets, all that jazz as it pertains to fire. I'd like to start with some deities that center fire in their mythos. So the Greek goddess Hestia comes to the forefront of my mind when I think of fire and deities. So Zeus designated Hestia to maintain fires in the Olympian hearth. The fires were fed from animal fat, and she was given the first offering during a sacrifice so that she can share fire with the gods to maintain their fires. Shrines to her were usually in cities and in private homes as well. There were at least 2 temples in Sparta and one in Ermioni, I'm probably saying that wrong, Ermioni, that were solely hers. Each city had a public fire that was not allowed to burn down. That was a big no-no. If the fires were accidentally allowed to extinguish, it was seen as like really bad luck. There were times where the fires were put out intentionally, but within like a ritual setting, and they were relit when a new colony was established, and that flame was carried to light the fires in the new village. So I thought that was kind of a cool tradition where the fires from Hestia's temples could be lit in people's, like you could carry the flame or the ash to your home and start your fires in your own hearth. And I thought that was kind of neat. So she was the Greek goddess of fire. Now we have Vesta. That's the Roman equivalent. And in their tradition, things were just a little bit more different. In Greek mythology, Hestia was often portrayed as a woman. In Roman mythos, she very rarely was depicted as a human and almost always as a flame. She was a little more prominent in their culture and daily lives than Hestia. And the goddess Vesta had a temple in the Forum Romanum, and only Vesta's priestesses, known as Vestals, were allowed inside the temple. The Vestals tended the sacred hearth fires of Vesta, and the sacred fire was so important that water wasn't even allowed in the temple unless absolutely fucking necessary. If the fires were ever to be extinguished, the Romans felt that something very, very bad was going to happen. Side note, have you guys seen that on Netflix? I have to talk to somebody about that series. So somebody I know, please watch. Something very bad is going to happen, or whatever the name of that one is. I can't remember exactly, but it was wackadoo. Anyway, Vesta was honored at her festival Vestalia from June 7th to June 15th. And on the first day of Vestalia, only women could offer sacrifices to her. And this is the sad part, the sacrifice, because we all know that back in the day, animal sacrifices was definitely a thing that a lot of different cultures did. And a donkey was adorned with a crown of flowers and bread and honored and eventually sacrificed for Vesta. Which is really fucking sad, but like I said, that's what happened back in the day. Another culture that had a few deities centered around fire were the Celts. Brigid is one of them and is associated with holy wells, but also sacred flames. In Kildare, Brigid's fire was tended by the priestesses since pre-Christian times. There were many attempts to put out the flames after Christianity dominated the Isle, but they were unsuccessful until the 16th century, which is freaking amazing that it lasted that long. Also, fuck them for trying to freaking put that fire out. Like, anyway, it infuriates me when I think about how that culture was squashed. Anyway, the sacred flames were relit in 1993 by Mary Teresa Cullen, the former leader of the Brigidine Sisters. Sorry, that's hard for my little mouth to say. Brigidine Sisters, a group of nuns dedicated to St. Brigid. So since 1993, the sacred fire has burned bright, being maintained by 19 nuns at St. Brigid's Sanctuary. Brigid is celebrated at Imbolc. In some traditions, it's a fire festival also known as St. Brigid's Day on February 1st. Candles are ritually lit as a form of sympathetic magic to kind of coax the sun out and its return, and to honor the goddess Brigid. The Celtic god of the sun is Belinus or Belus or Baal, whose name meant shining one. He was celebrated year-round, but honored specifically at Beltane, an ancient fire festival, on May 1st. There are over 50 inscriptions describing Belinus across Celtic Britain and Iberia, and even mentions in Roman texts. Belinus had sacred fires dedicated to him, known as balefires. They were held on hilltops the night of Beltane. Cattle and other livestock were herded between balefires to remove impurities and to keep the animals healthy until the following Beltane. And it also said that people would jump over the fires, like through the smoke, to cleanse and ward themselves from sicknesses and to stay healthy and to have good luck. And in their homes, they cleaned out the ash in their hearths and started over with the flames of Belinus to start the new season with purity and abundance. There are a ton of deities that are associated with the sun and fire all around the world, including Ra, Sekhmet, Helios, and Sol, just to name a few. I'm not going to go through all of them, or this would end up hours and hours long. Google is free. If you are curious, look that up. Early humans, they knew that the sun traveled through the sky and that it was the force behind the changing of the seasons. And from this mythos arose to explain what happened to the sun god during each season. Okay, so think about all of the different mythoses where a deity goes away or dies in the cold months and then comes back when spring happens. There are a lot of different stories about that in a ton of different cultures. So let's just leave it at that. Let's shift over to talking about some of the associations and correspondences with the element of fire. I have stopped and started this part over and over because Louis is downstairs, my little Pomeranian, barking like a madman, not because of anything important, because he just wants me downstairs. I have those little buttons, the little talking buttons, and he has, I don't know, he's probably got 8 or 9 buttons, and he's letting me know with those buttons he would like me to go downstairs. I've already been down there once to give him treats because he would not stop pushing the puzzles button, which puzzles for him, I have a ton of little games that you put treats in and they have to figure out how to get the treats out. That's what he was wanting. And he gets one every afternoon at about 3 or 3:30. So he let me know loudly that I had missed the 3 or 3:30 deadline and that I should get my butt out there. Okay, let's get back to correspondences. So the sun is an obvious one. So let's just talk about Mars for a little bit. In astrology, Mars is associated with courage, sexuality, strength, passion, and that force, that life force that drives us to follow our dreams and to survive. It's a reddish planet, so it kind of goes with the theme. And you can kind of see that with the naked eye if you look at it in the night sky. There's a lot of different apps for your phone so that you can kind of look and see what's in the sky and where it's at. Highly recommend one of those. The day of the week associated with Mars is Tuesday. And those hours in that day are great for breaking spells, summoning up power and strength, legal issue spells, to fan the flames of creativity. Flan the flames? Jesus. Anywho, these aren't the only ways to use Tuesday and Mars, but that's a few of them. Colors associated with fire are red, orange, yellow, gold, or a combo of those, or a variation of those. You can use color to represent fire in your spells. Some ways to do that are by using a candle with that color. Another way is an altar cloth that has those corresponding colors or maybe some symbols painted on it. Your clothing during your rituals and spells, if it's heavily centered around the fire element, or your purposes definitely include that big element of fire, then you can dress in those colors as well. I happen to have those. They're actually swimsuit covers is what they're supposed to be for. I think. I don't know who would wear a big lace muumuu to the beach, but more power to you if you do. But I have a couple of those. So I've got a black one, a white one, and I have a red one that I got off the interwebs. And they're just lace. So they're see-through. So put some clothes on underneath or not. If you've got whatever, don't or do. But I will wear those in a lot of my rituals. Maybe not so much my spells, but my rituals that I do. Those are a little bit more involved for me, and I like the theatrical presentation of a big ritual because I'm me. So I have some garments that I will use and use each color accordingly. Let's see, what else? Oh, I was going to say, so there are cheap handkerchiefs that you can get at most craft stores or the dollar store, and you can get those and paint fire sigils or symbols on it for your workings if you are doing one centered around fire. Some crystals that you might work with to represent the element of fire are carnelian, bloodstone, red jasper, garnet, amber, fire agate, topaz, and there's a whole shitload more, but those are just a few. Some ways you can use crystals and the fire element would be to carry one of those crystals with you when you're needing a boost of energy, confidence, some decisive action, that type of vibe. One of my favorite ways to incorporate fire crystals into my life is through jewelry. I love a good garnet stone to wear in a necklace or a ring to boost that fire energy within myself. some herbs that correspond with fire that you can use. Some of them are cinnamon, ginger, basil, marigold, sunflower, rue, rosemary, saffron. There's a lot of them. Look that up on the internet. Or find one of your correspondence books, break that out, and see what we got. There's one from Llewellyn, like the big orange book. That's a great one. It's got all kinds of correspondences. It's the big correspondence book. Anywho, but there's a lot different ones that you can get as well. That's just one of the ones that comes to the forefront of my mind. You can use fire herbs in kitchen witchery. That is probably the way I most use herbs anyways in my kitchen witchery, because I gotta cook every day. Unfortunately, I do not have a private chef. So how do you do that? So the way I do it is I hold the herb in my hand and I whisper what I'd like it to do. What property to embody within my witchery that day. And then I'll put it in whatever dish I'm making. But I will hold it in my hands. I close my eyes. I whisper what I want it to do, and I put it in the dish. You can use those herbs to dress candles. You can burn them during spells and rituals as incense, or you can offer them to a deity, like as an offering. Man, that sounded... I'm not going to be recording that. It just is what it is. My mind is scrambled, and I'm doing the best of what I can, okay? They are also amazing herbs to add power and oomph to a spell. If you're into tarot, you know that wands is the suit that holds fire energy within it. Although, when I looked that up, there are people who do not believe that. They believe swords is the fire one. So, you do you. It's whatever. This is good to know, though, when interpreting readings. And also, you can use wands cards to represent that kind of fire energy if you're needing it for a spell or a ritual. So find the particular wands card that holds the energy that you're trying to use and place that on your altar. Something I do, I don't just put it on my altar. I will hold that card and kind of meditate on what I want that card to embody and thinking about the purpose of why I'm using that card. That makes sense? So let's kind of bring all that info together and make a candle to represent the element of fire. I'm going to try to make this as accessible as possible and mostly stuff that you already have or you can get at the dollar store or your grocery store. So tea lights, they're cheap, they're plentiful, and they don't burn that long, so you don't have to just sit there and stare at it for hours. Because who has time for that? I mean, I do, but I don't want to do that. Anyway, you'll need some basil, cayenne, pepper, or cinnamon, or all three, whatever you want. Or if you don't have those, look in your spice cabinet, see what you have, and Google those herbs. See if one of them does represent fire, because chances are you have something in your house that does. You'll also need matches or a lighter, a fire-safe bowl with a little bit of dirt or sand in the bottom, and a glass of water in case the fire needs putting out. Because safety first, witches. So you're going to pull the candle, and this is just a plain-ass white one. If you can find the cool colored ones, awesome. During Thanksgiving months, during the fall months, sometimes you'll find red or orange ones, the tea lights. So I tend to stock up on those in case I find them. But if you don't, just a white one, just a plain-ass white one that you can get from the dollar store. So you're going to pull the candle out of its little metal thing that it's in, and don't wreck the metal thing after you pull it out. You're going to get your herbs, just a pinch of each one of them, hold each pinch of herbs separately, and tell them the properties you want them to embody. So for example, if you grabbed cinnamon and you want to use this candle in a passion spell, tell it you want it to imbue passion into the candle to be released as you instruct it. If it's basil for a money spell, tell it to attract abundance in the form of cash money. You get what I'm saying here? So then put those herbs or herb into the bottom of the metal thing that the candle was in. You can put the herbs on top, but it's going to be a big old unpredictable flame. So do that at your own risk. The bottom is just a little bit safer. But still, this is all done in a fire-safe bowl with a little bit of sand in the bottom of it so that heat has some place to dissipate into. If you want to add spell oils, go for it. But please do your research and figure out if you're using an oil that will like cause more fire to happen. And, just be aware. So you have your candle, you put the herbs in it, you put the candle back in the metal thing, right? And then you put that inside your fire safe bowl on top of the sand on your altar. If you want, you can carve a triangle, which is the symbol for fire, into the candle with a toothpick or something else, maybe a butter knife. Now, on your altar, place the candle in the bowl, and when you need it, it's there for you to go light. Okay, you're done. That's it. You're done. You can fancy this up by adding crystals around the candle or carving a sigil that you crafted with whatever purpose for using fire in your spell is. You can also dress a taper candle with these herbs using a little bit of olive oil on the candle and then rolling it in the herbs. But beware that this candle is going to need attending the entire time you are burning it. Dressed candles are aesthetically pleasing, but they are a fucking fire hazard, period. So I have little, I don't know, they're 10 inches tall fire extinguishers from my altar area so that just in case the worst happens, I can put a fire out. Safety first. I hope this gave you a little info to chew on about the element of fire, how you can use it, what are some of the things that you can use to incorporate fire into your spiritual or witchy practice, color, crystals, herbs, oils. You can look at oils that are made from the herbs that are fire corresponded herbs. You can use your wardrobe, your clothing, your altar cloths. There are so many ways to incorporate the different correspondences of fire into your practice. Just find one that's fun for you. If it's not enjoyable, you're not going to keep doing it. So I tend to do things that I find fun. So if it's dressing and playing with candles, I'm in. If it's doing any kind of creative art project, I'm totally in. So find the things that inspire you and stick with those methods, or try something new, but find out what works for you. What sparks some joy and creativity in you when you're doing witchcraft. So, did I do anything as far as my witchy or spiritual practice, if anything, during the fires? Yes, I did. I did a very small bit because I didn't have the energy or the focus to do a ton of it because it was just chaos for the most part. But I did, I made an offering to the element of air first, asking for the wind to stop because that was just blowing. It was, I don't know, like I said, 60 miles an hour or more. Gusts in certain places. So I meditated with the candle that I have assigned to air, and I made an offering. And I'm not going to say what the offering was because that part's private. I did the same thing with water, and I asked for clouds to gather and rain or snow. I did not care which one. At that point, I just wanted moisture without lightning coming from the clouds. And this one might be weird, but I thanked fire for being present, but asked it to stop burning my heels, please. I begged for it to stop and left an offering for it as well. And lastly, I grieved for the earth, the animals, and the people that are losing their livelihoods and those that lost their lives, because there was somebody that did pass away in the first set of fires. I have a place on my altar for earth, and I left an offering for the earth as well. There are other things I did with protection and warding, but that's for another day. For the witches in the Marco group or the coven, you can ask me. I may do a private video for that. But that's for the most part, that's the main things that I did. Like I said, it was crazy. There's people texting and calling and trying to figure out where the fires were, where they're not, if we should evacuate, if we should not. There was so much going on. all through both of those fires. The second set of fires, like I said, was very, very close to us. And that one was terrifying. And I'm just so thankful that they're out and that the second set of fire, nobody passed away. Yes, people lost their homes, but they're alive. So, yeah. Okay, I think that's probably enough rambling about fire. But you guys, I wanted to share with you what's been going on with me because I didn't want you thinking that I just was leaving you high and dry. I had no spoons to edit an episode or anything. And I could have come out with like a normal one. Like I have one in the queue that's a class, but I need to get this fire information out of my head. I thought maybe this would be therapeutic for me to see fire and to talk about fire as an element that is useful and should be respected and revered in my spiritual and witchcraft practice. So this was a little bit of like therapy for me and information for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it, even if you are an experienced practitioner. I know a lot of this stuff is probably review, but it's sometimes for me, even when I'm listening to podcasts that are going over information that I'm familiar with, it can spark creativity and inspiration for me. And I'm hoping that if this is old news for you, that it sparks some sort of creativity within your practice with the element of fire. Thank you so much again for your patience and your understanding and for listening and for sticking with me. I appreciate you. So until next time, stay witchy. Bye-bye. If you've stayed with me this far, I am going to do a card pull for you from the Spellcasting Oracle deck. Yeah, I'm still using that deck. I am asking the cards to show me what is most important to get us through the next 2 weeks. Let's say. Okay. Because we all could use a little guidance. See what the most important thing to help us safely get through the next few weeks. Okay. Cut once, cut twice, thrice. Interesting. The card that I got is Manifestation, and it is a beautiful card. It is like a forest, and most of the picture is this giant full moon with this woman staring at the full moon. You just see her from the back with a wand in the air. She has some antlers on her head. She is gorgeous, and she is manifesting. This card usually, for me, my interpretation is be careful what you ask for. It also can mean that you need to have some patience with your manifestation. Ask yourself if it's something that you really want. I think that I just keep focusing on is the thing that you're asking for what you really want. Sit with that. Also, this can mean surprises are coming, little surprise manifestations. I will do a post with the picture of this and a little bit about it, about the card and what it means on social media. So if you want to see what it looks like, head over to one of the social medias. I'll probably post it on Instagram and Facebook. I haven't really been back. I haven't really posted anything on TikTok because TikTok. Again, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, bye.